Hello, everyone. I am Laura Olea, curator at Glow Hour online program. Today we have another live interview with one of our online residents. Thank you everyone for coming, and she will do a small presentation and we have a conversation after that. So everyone that wants to comment or make any question, you can do it in the chat. So today we have Ivonne, one of our online residents. So the floor is yours.
Thank you for your invitation to this live interview. I will start to show some work. So yeah, I shortly introduce myself. I'm Ivonne Thein. I'm a visual artist, and I live and work in Berlin. And I started to work with photography and video. This was what my main subject when I was studying. And I would shortly show you some early work. So actually it works from the end of my studies, and but it's important to see how everything started for me, or how I continue to work on my main subject. It's a work called 32 kilos, and at this time I was really interested in how we use photography, or how people perceive photography in terms of the body. So I think this was something for me. Until this point, I was more like the producer. So I wasn't really requesting what photographs make with the viewer. So in this series, it was the first time I used photography in a more artistic way. And I used also digital tools already to manipulate the photographs. So the work is about Pro-Ana, which is an internet movement, and it's basically young girls getting anorexic on purpose because they follow a certain lifestyle, and the main influence are images or photographs. And this is why I was really thinking about the role of photography, and also the role of these digital tools plays on our body, our idea about the body, or the self-image. So this is why I did this work. It was in 2006 to 2008. And as you can see already, the like part of fragility, or even that in fact anorexia is an illness, you can already see in the works, because I use these kind of bandages to point on that it's not really only about a lifestyle. So even though the girls are staged in really typical poses of fashion photography, you have this get this idea that it's not really only about following a certain lifestyle. So it's really about
Ivonne.
Now you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I also showed this work in an exhibition in CO Berlin in 2008, and also made this publication. Something is. It's a publication made with CO Berlin and an art critic who wrote a text about the work. So if you're interested in, let me know. There's still a digital version of the catalog I think the print version is already sold out. So this was for me the starting point of working as an artist, I would say, and also to work about this topic of body in terms of how we perceive it in the digital age. In between, I produced more photographic works and video works, but I would start now with my first installation, mixed media installation I made. It's from 2019. So this was when I also expanded my practice. I expanded more to three-dimensional space related works. Like this work, it's called I Feel Much Better Since I Stopped Eating Chocolate. It's also pointing on this lifestyle. Nowadays, we transfer or we show in social media or in social networks. So like I'm feeling happy because I look good and I'm really healthy. But as you maybe can see in this installation, there's these two parts of the body and it seems more like fragmented than a whole. And so it's really about how we change the like the self or the idea about the self in these social networks, because we are focused more on some parts. Mostly we're focused, we even like one part of the body or we don't like it, so it's really something isolated. So I like this idea about this that we don't have really a feeling of being a full body anymore through this kind of development. So yeah, this was my first mixed media installation, and I also continued, so I did other works, but then also I started to work in a really more abstract way. As you can see maybe in this installation, it's photographs in the background. The photographs are computer generated, so I used real photographs as a base, and then I worked with 3D program to make this kind of forms. And it's also a video. I would show it. It's so at the end, it's a whole installation. So as you can see here, it's also about the fragmented body and also about posthumanism. So the idea about posthumanism and also how far I can push the border to still have the idea that it's about the human body. So I also used artificial bodies and body parts in other works I did before. So I was always interested in the question how or when do we see it as a body? So how is these artificial bodies or body parts, they are also existing? How do we, from the visual side, get the idea of this human body? So where is the border, or how can I push this border in this direction? So in these works, for example, this is the photographs, you still have the idea of a body, but on the other side, you also could see it as like planets or some stones, or it's really something on the border. So I like the idea of being a bit, yeah, pushing it to a certain point where you get this kind of border. This is another work where I use this 3D computer generated technology. So I also use just a picture of skin and worked with a 3D program to produce it. So this was maybe the starting point where I thought about more about this kind of technologies, how they change also our idea of the body. So not just the fact that we are seeing bodies in a virtual space, or we produce body images in a virtual world, but also how technologies deal with this kind of subject, or with the subject of the human body. But I'm also interested in the material, or like the haptical part. So as you can see, I started to work also with silicon sculptures, or to produce them. It's also the same whole body of work. It's called How Not to Be Seen as a Body. And it's really in the same process as the installation, because also it's about abstraction, but at the same time about how we still have the idea of a human body. And in this case, even the feeling, because if you would touch it, you have the feeling maybe of touching skin, or at least it's familiar to that. So this is this series of wall sculptures I made, and they kind of belong to the installation as well. But of course, I use it in a really abstract way, even though you really have the feeling of skin sometimes. I use really an aesthetic or abstract way to transform it to an object. So in the same way, like you have an idea about the body, but also not. So this work is not really about our idea about. So I also deal with gender issues, and maybe also the differences in gender, or how do we categorize gender in a visual way also. And it's a good example maybe about the forms I use, or I'm trying to find in my works, to give a really abstract idea about the body, but in a way that you don't really need a real body to understand it. So it's also an installation from the same year. As you can see, it's again about material as well. So I used artificial hair, but then also the form. And as I said, when I started to use these 3D technologies to generate totally artificial body images or body parts, I also got more to think about how this technology changed our idea about the body, or how digital technologies are able to interpret the body. So this is why I started this year to work with an artificial intelligence to also find out how these AIs are able to work with the human body. So as we know, there's many artificial intelligence integrated already, like in software, in image editing software, there's face recognition, and there's many parts in the daily life where the AI is already really present, but in a really subtle way. So we don't really recognize that it's included, but it's really having, I think it has an effect on our idea about the body. So, and this is a work I worked with this AI in the process that I tried to produce images with together with the AI that again give the feeling of the body, but really in an abstract way. So you sometimes maybe have some forms or parts, or you recognize faces, but it still seems a bit weird, or yeah, maybe even animalic. So it's yeah, it's a really playful and creative process to generate this kind of images. So, and in this case, I also produced this work as a printed version. So it's like a 80 to 80 centimeter print at the end in a frame. So I like to use this digital image and put it back to the physical space as an image. And but in the same time, I also made a video out of it, which is like a short morph of these images I will show. So it's a video made out of 17 of these computer or image synthesis. Yeah, then this work became now part of a digital collection. So it's an art collection or an edition of 30 artworks, digital artworks from 30 international artists. And it's only available on a tablet as, yeah, in a special technology in terms of that you're only able to see the works on the tablet, so you can't use the tablet for something else. And you activate the work with an NFC chip. So you put the cube with the name of the artist on the tablet, and then it's getting activated and you see the work. So it's a box with a catalog, and then you have these cubes. And I like the idea that there's another physical thing. It's not just existing on the computer somewhere. So it's really back to the, even if it's a digital file or like a digital work, it's having this transfer back to the physical world. So this is what I'm also trying to go back and forth in my work, or especially with this work. So the second work I produced with the AI is this work. Actually, it's an installation based on image synthesis I also made with the AI. And the sculptures you can see are inspired by this image the AI produced. So I made a real, yeah, physical sculpture again, because I also try to bring it back to the physical world, the digital work. So I like to, you know, use the idea the AI maybe had about a face or a head, and then bring it back. In this case, it's with silicone as well, and you really have the feeling of skin, and also the colors, of course. The skin color gives you this idea about maybe a real head. And the original works, or some of them, it's there's more, but the base for these sculptures are the image synthesis I generated with the AI. And yeah, and this is where I'm started right now, or like basically almost in the same time. Like I started with the residency with Glow Barrier to work or to continue the work with the AI. And it's still in the beginning, but I started to train the AI more. So before I used already mostly already trained artificial intelligence. And now I really started to choose the images I want to give the AI as a base to learn. So and it's still about the body, or how these technologies maybe change our idea about the body or influence. And yeah, I have some work in progress works I've generated. It's different kind of ways I'm getting there. And at the end, I want to show some new installation and video works. So again, there's this sculptural aspect, which I also gonna develop with this work. So the plan is also to do some more sculptures, but in a different way. So based on the works. And here I have a good example how this AI also changes like the idea of the body, so how different the results can be. I like in this work, I also like that on the right hand side, you almost have the feeling of a female breast. So it's also really challenging our idea about the body, I think, a bit, like what is gender, or how do we recognize a certain gender or define a gender. So this is really still working in progress, but I like that there's these really different kind of aspects in each work the machine is generating. And of course, it's about also how or what kind of images are based on this work of the AI. So what images do I choose in terms of gender, age, skin color, and all these kind of questions? So it's also a social and political work in a way. And I have a short video, it's really short, about the process of the AI, how it's developing these images from the base image. So I like that the AI tries to find this best version of the body at the end. So because the aim is to generate in this case a body image I gave the AI, and but it tries to make the best version out of it. And so this is what it's really interesting in the process also of the work. So actually the process is part of the work and not just the result. And I'm going to show that also in the presentation of the work. At the end, there should be the process also being part of the whole installation. Yeah, so that's where I'm now, and I'm continuing to work. So thank you for your attention. And yeah.
One thing that maybe it would be interesting to explain a little bit is how, for this example of this video, you have to make a selection of shapes, but also textures, and how that is digested somehow for the machine, as we call it. How maybe you can go a little bit further about that selection and that training that you have been doing?
Sure. So I didn't choose any images to show, but I basically had to choose like 30 images, which are the inspiration for the form of the result image, and then 30 images which are basically the result the machine wants to get. Mm-hmm. So and but the combination, or like how many of these images the machine or the AI is using, I really can't control. It's really about the algorithm. And because I don't program it by myself, I really can't control. I tried to do that in terms of my logic, like a human logic, but it turned out that the machine has a different logic. So it's really something I can't control. So I just have this pool of images I give the AI, and then I train. And in this case of this image now, or like this result, I think I have 300 different single images, like snapshots now, or more than 300. So I think it's about maybe 5-hour training. I'm not sure, but yeah. So, but I get all these single steps as a result from the AI, and then I'm also able to choose the image I want. As you can see here, this is just different steps. But well, actually, it's another. The right one is even another combination of works. But for example, I didn't take the end image. On the left-hand side, you see something in between. So step 180 or something. So the result is a lot of images I get. So I don't know how many I already generated, but many. And yeah, it's also for me always a question of how do I choose, or what is the best image for me to show my artistic idea about the project. So, and how do I get there? So right now I'm still working on, I have a certain idea about an image maybe I want to get. And so how do I get there? But of course, it's not really in my own control. So it's really a collaboration in a way. You start to write a text, then you give the paper to someone else, and this person continues to write a text. So it's a bit the same in this process. So it's really not just a digital tool, it's more like a collaboration maybe. Yeah.
Kind of a partnership with the machine. Think about this. Okay. So yeah, thank you, because I think sometimes this kind of technology, we hear a lot of it, but we don't really know how it's used or how can be used for artistic practice, for example. So I really appreciate that one part of your work right now is to make that process visible, as you show us right now, or as you are explaining. So I really appreciate that kind of understanding, and talking to you is something that I can figure out a little bit. Before you, I was like, no idea at all. I would like to go to basics a little bit, because we could see that your work unfolds in different formats, different mediums, that even that you started with photography and video, as you said. You show us sculpture, you show us installation. How you develop that process, and how is that important to cover different bases for you?
I would say that it was kind of a process, because I started to build sculptures to take photographs out of it. So, and then maybe I should show that work, but so I found out that why not doing the next step and just doing the sculpture instead of just taking the picture out of it. I think I was a bit, because I studied photography, I didn't study art in this case. Maybe I was really related to the medium in the beginning a lot. And for me, video and photography is still quite near in terms of the image. So, but yeah, so I think I had this conversation with another artist many years before, when I was still just doing photography mainly. And he said, like, I think if I see your photographs, you would be a good sculptor, because he was a sculptor, which was interesting that he said that. So I think there was always this kind of sculptural aspects, even in the first work I showed you. You could even imagine them as sculptures in the way I took the photographs and I work with it. So even the digital manipulation on each leg or arm was kind of, you're just using a tool to form the sculpture just in a digital way and on a photograph. So I think it was always a bit part of my work, but I just found out that it's interesting for me also to not be too limited to one or two mediums. So I think it was really pushing my work and also my concept forward when I started to work with 3D works or installation and sculptures, because then of course you start to request also other things. I think it's just for my conceptual ideas, photography and video was just too limited at a certain time, at a certain point in my practice.
Well, now that you said that, yeah, I can totally relate with that statement about the volume on your images is really powerful. In fact, one of the questions that I wanted to go on is, we talk about the technology you use, but also in the different works and installations and sculptures, the aesthetic somehow is going around the body also kind of as flesh or as a volume or a shape. I don't know if is your intention on going on to study that body as an object. Sometimes it's really without any identity, in terms that there is no a recognition phase, but it's at the same time it's vulnerable, it's fragile. So how is your take on this concept of body, more than the body that take us, this form that you use for your work?
I think it has something to do about exactly what you said, that I don't show identity. I think it has something to do that you speak more about the body if you don't have a relation to a certain person. Or I really, even in the first work, I don't show any faces. So I think it's really about being focused on the body and also on the surface of the body, actually. So also on the fast and superficial way we look at other bodies, maybe, also, no? Because this is how even humans perceive people, other humans in person. So the first thing is you scan the body. So, and this is like, maybe I do that in my art too, to show that, of course, this is also a really, maybe a study on the surface of the body, what I'm doing. Yeah. And the other thing is like that I see it as a material, or like a raw material I work with. So I think it's really about that. I don't, my conceptual ideas mostly are not about certain people. So it's really something about a social or political idea about the body. So this is why I don't really point out certain people, or I don't show them, because it's really something, the viewer should put themselves in this position. So maybe it's easier to identify yourself with the work if you're not having already an identity in the work. So this is maybe another part.
Yeah, it's a distance that you can take to question without emotional connection. Maybe when you see a face, if you don't know it, it's a human. So the other way, like for example, this installation that you show with this kind of eggs or rocks, the texture of the skin gives you more connection, but
Mhm.
not enough. You still are able to question like a scientific aspect even.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's really clear the importance of social and political strategies, or at least thoughts and concepts behind the body and our perception of it. I would like to ask you about the conceptual basis that you are working with, the references that you take in mind, not just for the body, but also with this relationship that you develop with technology as a tool and as a material tool.
I think the reason why I use or I speak about technology and the body together, I think it's because on the one hand I'm using technology also for my work, and I think I also feel surrounded or totally overwhelmed sometimes. So I struggle in my own body. I struggle with technology sometimes. Like the best example is now we speak online with the camera, and this is not a talk live face to face. So I think I still have problems, maybe because I'm also like the generation which still knows the non-digital world. So
Yeah.
I grew up that I still didn't exist the internet until I was like, I don't know, 16, 17. So I had this parallel world, which was non-digital or not so influenced by technology as nowadays. So I think this is why I'm still struggling. So, and of course, my work is always about myself in a way that I work about topics I'm either interested or I maybe have some fears about it, or they kind of make me struggle. In this case, the technologies I am on the one hand really excited about the possibilities. On the other hand, I'm also struggling. So I think it's this kind of tension I like.
Yeah.
And this is why I think relates it automatically to my work, or it's automatically somehow connected to the issue of body and the digital age, I would say.
Yeah, it's something that is that in between that encounter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the last question I have is about the future for this project, especially that you are developing. How is the next step? Of course, you are in previous moments of the research, but how do you see the future of the project?
Well, I have a certain idea about what I want to at the end show. So the project will be exhibited next year, and I plan to show some excerpts, like images I choose, and I will print them probably on fabric or something like quite big, and but in the same time I will trying to find images I generated to work on the idea of the sculpture, but based on these images. And it's gonna come all together in another installation. And as I said, the video will be another part, as maybe more showing more the process of the AI without explaining it maybe too much, but just more the visual part of the process I'm interested in. So that you're trying to, I think it's totally normal to trying to understand how the AI is working. I think I didn't understand it either yet. So I think even when I'm finished, I'm not gonna be totally clear about it. but I like the idea that we call it intelligence, or like it's an artificial intelligence. And I found out that it has a totally different logic than I have. So, but it's based on human logic or human intelligence, but more maybe on a mathematical way. So I think this is what's really the difference. So I'm a visual person, so I have another logic than maybe someone who's programming. And this is interesting because also it's a self-learning machine. So it's has the base of this person gave this kind of algorithm, but now it's learning with my input. So, but I'm also able to change the outcome through the input or through the images I give. And yeah, so I think it's really a really playful process. It's really not easy to say what's going to be the final result. But I think I'm really interested in having a similar concept in ways of that you have this particle or like filling of volume and material again, which maybe what I don't want that you think about technology so much when you see the works. So because it's really not only about that. So I think it's something, it's part of the process, but I don't want people to think just about the technology when they see the works. So this is really important, but this is not easy because the results mostly you have a certain visual language when you get these computer generated or like image synthesis they are made with the AI, you always have a certain visual language. So to break that or to kind of, you know, use it in the way you wouldn't in the first moment know that it's made with an AI is not so easy. So this is also part of my process, actually.
Part of the challenge to break a little bit that. And also I like that part that you said. I think the logic of the machine is quite flexible for you to train them and interact with the results, but not so much like something that you are pointing in your process really well is that bias that has the machine without possible destructurization of that. I mean, that code that decide which images, this is something that you cannot access. You can just try to force it, but at just a certain point. So I think that process of research is really interesting. As you said, this partnership and collaboration with the AI is really attractive for the visitor and the viewer like me, but also for you to develop that body of research.
Yeah, so it's really like a research project too, for me. Yeah, it's also about understanding more. Maybe instead of having the fear of saying it's something bad, to also get to understand it more. And I think this is usually what humans do. They're trying to understand, and then they're less frustrated about it, you know. And this is what I'm doing, but in a visual way or like through my art. Yeah.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I think it's a powerful idea to think instead of avoid or just block that technology in your life, which is almost impossible right now, is some kind of embrace it and try to get closer. So that's a lovely concept.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ivonne, for the talk, the presentation, and share your work with us. Has been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for your invitation and the nice talk.
Yeah, of course. So see you soon, and we will continue with the presentations in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.